Today I'm going to show you how to make small splits within your own apiary. Before we go any further, let's get inside this beehive. I've taken off the roof there and I've got a feeder on top, and I have got a brood box full to the brim with bees. So normally when I give people advice about how to make splits, I say to them, take a brood box like this, take a frame of brood, take a frame of stores, good shake of bees, put it into a nuke box and take it off to another apiary over 3 miles away. Now that is still my advice to you. That's really good advice, and it makes your life so much easier. It avoids any cross-contamination, it avoids a lot of robbing, and it means that you can feed your bees straight away. But I am aware that most people come back and say, I've not got another apiary and I can't get one, so can I do it in my own apiary? And the answer is, of course, yes, you can do it. But there's a few precautions that you need to keep in mind to make sure that you don't set off some severe robbing within your colonies. Because if you set off robbing in your apiary, it can really set your colonies back. And if you're making splits, you obviously want to grow. So the problem with making splits in your same apiary is that if I just go and take this frame of bees and go and take them over there, then the majority of the bees will stay put. But what will happen is when they go out to forage, they're going to leave whatever beehive that I put them in over there and go out and fly, and they're going to come back here. They're not going to go to the beehive over there because of the 3 foot or 3 mile rule. Now that rule is really, really simple. All it means is that if you've got a beehive like this one here, I can move it 3 foot that way, I can move it 3 foot that way, and anywhere within those 2 distances there, the bees will come back and they'll be able to find it. But the rule says if you move it further than 3 feet, then the bees will come back and they don't know where that is. And this rule is very, very important when it comes to making splits within the same apiary, because if you just go ahead and make loads of splits and take them off into different locations, then you're going to lose a lot of those flying bees. Now, one way of setting it up is to say, right, I'm going to take this colony here, and if I turn it round this way, it's a little bit easier to explain. Right, we could say we got 10 frames here, so let's take that 5 frame split and put it here, and this 5 frame split and put it there, and they're kind of in the same location, and find where the queen is, put a queen in the other one, and that would work. That would make a split. That would be very, very easy. But I don't like to do it that way because it limits you to this zone here, and it means that you can't make quite a lot of splits. You can't turn one colony into 5 splits. You're limited to 2 or 3 max. But if you think about that in another way and say, well, what impact will that have if I just take off some frames and put it in a nuke and go and put it 20 or 30 meters over there? Will all of the bees go back, or will it leave some of the resources at the new site? And that's exactly what happens. It leaves quite a lot of the resources back at the old site. And depending on the mix, the makeup of bees and frames and brood and stores, you can almost dictate the amount of bees that are going to stay over there. So for example, if you took 3 frames of stores and just shook loads of bees in and went and put them over there, I guarantee you'd come back the next day and there would be no bees in there whatsoever, and you just have 3 empty frames of stores. They need the brood there, preferably a mix of open and closed brood, but they need that brood there to maintain the temperature, especially if the nights are getting cold, but also just to keep the bees on it. The nurse bees that are in this colony here, and there are lots and lots of nurse bees in this colony, but all these nurse bees here want to do is sit on the brood and keep it nice and warm and feed young larvae. So if you make splits with lots of capped brood like this, then the young nurse bees that are sitting on it and keeping it warm are not likely to go out and fly. In fact, they're probably not even old enough to go out and fly yet, which means they're not going to go out and fly and even know how to get back to this beehive. They're just going to stay put where they are. So if I was making up splits to take off to another site now, this is the recommendation that I would give you. I'd say find a nice frame of brood like that one there. Find a nice frame of stores, put them together in a nuke like that, take it off to the new site, go through the process, wait 8 days, knock down all the emergency cells, add your queen in. But as soon as you get to the site, I'd say, yeah, go ahead and feed. Put some 1-to-1 sugar syrup in the feeder and just get the bees going. The same advice does not apply if you're doing it in the same apiary. And it comes back to that 3 foot and 3 mile rule once again. If I take out this frame of bees over here and I go and put it over there and start feeding them, all they do is they kind of come back up and fly out into the air and come back to this beehive and say, there's a really good feeding frenzy going on over there. Come on, let's go and check it out. And then what happens is you come back and you find intense robbing and brood that is being cannibalized and it's dead because all of the bees have gone. So the recommendation is very, very simple, which is if you're making any sort of splits within the same apiary, you can do that, but you definitely can't feed immediately after making the split. You need to wait until all of those bees, all of those forager bees have gone back out and bled back to the main beehive. And then they're never going to go back over and bother the small nuke again. And then after 3 or 4 days, you can safely go in and feed them then. So it brings me on to the next point, which is if you can't feed the bees, don't go and take a 3 or 4 frame split that's just entirely brood, that's covered in nurse bees, because you've not got the foragers to go out and get the food that the bees need. So the easiest fix to that is to make sure that you give them sufficient stores within the mix that you're giving them. And at this time of the year, it's kind of middle of May at the moment, moment, 1 frame of brood and 1 frame of stores and a really good shake of bees is going to be the bare minimum split size that I would make at this time of the year if I was going to another apiary site. But when you factor in the fact that they're going to bleed a lot back to this hive here, you need to stock it up a little bit bigger than that. So I would go with 2 frames of bees and brood, 1 frame of stores, and then you want to shake in at least an additional frame of bees, possibly 2 extra frames of bees, and then we can go off and we can make this, and then we can go off, we can make the split, we'll take it somewhere new, and later on in the season, I'll come back and I'll show you how well it went. Now, what we're going to do with this nuke here is not give it a mated queen. We're going to give it a ripe queen cell with one of our UK mated queens, and then we'll come back a few weeks later and see how that mating took. This does actually come into play as well in terms of the amount of bees that you're going to add in there. Because if you're going in and adding in a mated queen, that queen can get to work straight away. She can start laying the eggs and start the timer for all of that brood to emerge 3 weeks later to build that colony up. But if you're putting a cell in like that, you're introducing potentially another 3 to 4 week delay before you even get to the point where that queen's going to start to lay. And then you've got another 3 weeks before any of her offspring are actually boosting the colony numbers up again. So when I said about adding in a shake of 1 frame of bees, I'm definitely going to go with the 2 frame version here. I'm going to stock it a little bit bigger because we're going with a natural mating with a queen cell opposed to having a caged queen that's ready to lay. So in terms of making up that split, really simple. I've got Payne's Poly Nuke here. I'm just going to take out some of the frames and then we'll go through and work out exactly what we need. So first frame here does have a decent amount of brood on it, but I can feel it. That's a really nice heavy frame. Lots of stores on that side there, Zane. So that's going to be my first frame going in. I would say that's like 70% stores with a little bit of brood on it. And you can see how gently I put that in there. I don't want the bees flying up. You could, if you want, even just put the roof back on for the time being, but I'll do this relatively quickly. Next frame, we've got a little bit of stores on it again, but that one there I would say is like a 50-50 frame. 50% brood, 50% stores, the perfect frame for something like this. So really the mix I've got there is I've got a frame of stores and a frame of brood, but I've kind of got like 2 half frames. So they're spread across both of the frames. And then I've got a third frame that's very, very similar to that as well. A little bit more stores on it, I would say. So that's 3 frames in. I'm not going to add this frame in, but I'm going to shake all of the bees off to go into this nuke here. I'm going to do it on this frame and I'm going to do it on 1 extra frame as well. And then you'll be able to see just how many bees I put when I'm making the splits in my same apiary. So then take in another frame and we're going to shake all of these bees in as well. So you can see, because we've got the mixture of stores and capped brood, but more importantly, open brood in there, what happens to the bees? They all just go down and say, yeah, this is home. I'm going to settle in here because it's nice and dark. They're not just going to fly up and kind of go wild. Okay, some people's bees do that, but my nice chilled out bees, they're just trying to get down to where it's dark, to where it's settled. So on this frame here, there is completely covered with young nurse bees. We have got tons of queen cells. So it's on a JZBZ cup, so I should just be able to get it out like that. So inside here, we have a young queen that will emerge in a few days' time as a virgin queen. Take her a few days to become sexually mature, and then she'll go off hopefully for a mating flight and hopefully come back as a successfully mated queen. So the JZBZ cages are brilliant for this. They just slot very nicely in between the frames like this. You can just plop it down. And because I'm making this nuke up here from a hopelessly queenless split, I don't need to go through the process of making these queenless. However, if you're going through this process and you've got a queen in this colony here and you've got eggs and open brood in here, you need to make this split here first hopelessly queenless. It's super simple to do that. You wait 8 days, you shake off all the bees, you take down all the emergency cells, and then at that point you can go in and you can add in a queen cell if you've got it, or you can add in a mated queen. Either one of those will work absolutely fine. But this colony here is hopelessly queenless already, so that cell can go straight in, and I'm just going to put a little plastic crown board on top there, and then we'll put the ventilated screen on. So I've got the entrance closed up at the moment, but all I have to do now is close up the original donor beehive and take this nuke off to somewhere else in the apiary. Let's go and find somewhere really nice for it. So now the nuke's in the new spot, and I know it looks quite far. It's about 20 meters from where the original beehive was, but I can explain a little bit better about the 3 foot or 3 mile rule now. When the bees come out here, they don't know where they are. They've orientated to the spot over there. So any foragers that are in here are going to fly off, go out and do some foraging, and then when they come back, they're not going to come back here. They're going to go to that beehive. I tried to configure this in a way to limit the amount of foragers that are in there, but there would definitely be a good proportion of the bees in there that are foragers. So let's say I've got 1,000 bees in there at the moment. I know over the next couple of flying days, that's probably going to dwindle down by 20–30%, something like that as a maximum. But with the brood, with the stores, and then with this little trick here as well, we're going to try and fool as many of those bees as possible to confuse them and to get them to orientate back to this spot. So you'll hear people talking about like magic sticks or sticking sticks in the entrance. And all you do is you just want to find some kind of like thin, wispy sticks like this. And once you've opened the entrance like that, you put the sticks in really loosely. So you're not stuffing it, you're not closing the entrance. You're basically saying to any bee, I reckon you could get through there, but it's going to be a little bit more difficult. And the idea is to trick them, to fool them into orientating without realizing that actually it's over there. And then they start doing their little loop flights. And then doing that, that will hopefully trick a few more bees to stay put in here. So it's as simple as that. Making splits in the same apiary isn't quite as easy as doing them and taking them over 3 miles away, but it definitely can be done as long as you ensure that you do not get caught out by all of those common mistakes. So if you're interested in learning more about bees, check out our online course, 14-Day Beekeeper, that will turn you from a beginner to a competent beekeeper in just 2 weeks. Check it out at 14daybeekeeper.com.